In part one, we're following developments in Burundi where a former head of intelligence has declared the ouster of the country's president, who seemed to be headed full steam ahead for a third run for president next month, despite cries it was unconstitutional and contrary to a 2005 peace deal. With police using live ammunition on protesters these past 3 weeks and the standoff intensifying, 24 hours ago, we finished this show wondering where the army in Burundi stands. Well, this lunchtime, with Pierre Nkurunziza out of the country at a regional summit on the crisis, the announcement of that attempted coup. We're talking about it here in the France 24 debate with our guests. We welcome back Juste Irakoze, a Burundian activist. He is sitting next to David Gakunzi, who chairs the Paris Global Forum. Welcome back to the show, sir. We're also in the company of political and development consultant Osman Hussein, who travels often to Burundi. Thank you for being with us, and who knows some of the main players in this what this theater that's playing out. We're also joined from the capital, Bujumbura, by Carl Chris Nassim Yumva, an activist who was with us when we were talking about it all 24 hours ago. And of course, France 24's Duncan Woodside, our correspondent. Duncan, I'm going to begin with you because when we last spoke an hour ago, there was this report from the Tanzanians that President Nkurunziza had left Dar es Salaam, and another report saying that the airport and land borders had been closed. Any sign of the president?
Well, at the moment, there is no sign of the president. I spoke a very short while ago, about 5 minutes ago, to the president's senior advisor. I asked him if he could give an update on the president's position. He said at this stage he was unable to do so and that I should call back in an hour from now. That's obviously a slightly different position to the very confident and assertive line that was coming from the presidency earlier today. They earlier said that the coup attempt could be read as a joke. That position perhaps changing now in a context where we're getting reports, unconfirmed reports, that the president's plane tried to land at Bujumbura airport but was turned back, was refused permission to land. Now, we've had that report from various sources, but we've been unable to fully confirm that, because at the end of the day, confirmation would have to come from the presidency in order for that to be established as a fact at this stage.
Duncan, you were telling us that after the shows of celebration that we saw earlier, but also some sporadic gunfire, that Bujumbura had gone quiet. Is that still the case?
Well, as far as we're aware, yes, Bujumbura is quiet at the moment. We did a quick tour of the streets of the capital about an hour and a half ago. At that stage, there were small pockets of protesters or people celebrating this attempted coup, but they seem to be dispersing towards their homes in a context where they're all quite exhausted, I imagine. Also, what was interesting at that stage was that the police who had disappeared from the streets were beginning to emerge back onto the streets, looking very, very angry. So that was an interesting development at that stage in a context where the police, of course, are perceived to be extremely loyal to President Nkurunziza's regime. We don't know the exact position at the moment. We know that there has been this coup attempt by Major General Niyombare. We don't know whether that's been successful. There are so many rumours flying around that it would be silly at this stage to say that the coup attempt has succeeded or failed. There could be many twists and turns yet in this saga.
Many twists and turns. Let's turn now to our panel and ask them. I'm going to begin with you, Juste Irakoze. For you, at this point in time, we see the tension that's transpired. We're getting the reports of negotiations. At this point in time, we haven't seen much negotiating taking place these past 3 weeks. Can it all be resolved peacefully?
Well, that's all we hope for. For now, the negotiations seem to be ongoing, and information's coming from the social media and the people on the ground are saying that the plane which Nkurunziza took was rerouted because of the closing of the borders. It might have been rerouted maybe in Nairobi or in Uganda. So it's still a floppy situation, but as I said it earlier, it's still a victory for the people, because because the main thing was to forbid and to stop Nkurunziza from bidding that third term. And I think now it's secured. It's a mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Do you agree, Osman Hussein?
But I think we have to wait to see in the coming hours what are going on in the ground, because it's a fight between two groups of generals. The strong group who was supporting the president, the head of also army, chief of army, and then as well with one of the strong man we call General Dov. And then the other side, you have who's supporting the uprising, the Ministry of Defense, and as well the former chief of intelligence. And then we will see, because they are negotiating, that maybe to leave those who supporting the president, that they leave of, I think, without any major problem, because they want to be secure after this coup is happening. And then they have also ruling parties who will replace the the president.
In your view,
Nkurunziza.
right now, who has the upper hand?
I think the upper hand will come to the, I think, to these people who have made the coup. The upper hand will come.
The fact that the president's plane hasn't been able to land, a sign of that.
This is something I think should be happen, because most of the army, because the army, you have two tribes within the army, Hutu and Tutsi. And then today the Hutu and Tutsi, they are together. The major group of the Hutu also with the Tutsi, they are talking, and then they are exchanging. They don't want to also allow the president to run for third term. And then the other group who's supporting the president is remain with the Hutu, the only who's supporting the president, because they want to control the party, and then they want to remain with the same privilege they have.
All right, so the fear from that being that you'd have a radicalization if President Nkurunziza stays on. Do you agree with that analysis?
I think there are two things. One is that the change is there. Secondly, is that we don't have to see Burundi with old eyes. The divisions are no more Hutu and Tutsi. The division is between democratical people, the people who are supporting democracy, and others who are putting the personal power of Nkurunziza. Those are
because people. You're right to point that out. People who don't know Burundi, they know that you have the same ethnic makeup as Rwanda, and there's been at least 6 times in the past ethnic massacres that have taken place. In
exactly. But Nkurunziza tried to manipulate those old divisions to be able to stay in power, but he didn't succeed. So the division today is between people who support Arusha Agreement, the constitutions, and those who are supporting the personal power of Nkurunziza for sometimes personal interests. And I think that the main issue today is how will this change goes on. Will it go through peace negotiations? And I think this is what is going on the field today between the few militaries who are still supporting Nkurunziza and the majority of the army, because the majority for the army was for the Arusha Agreement. And I think that in the coming few hours, all these issues will be solved. We were in the same situation as Compaore. We remember when Compaore was overthrown, there was few hours when there was discussions on how we will get out. So I think this is the same situation.
Blaise Compaore, former president of Burkina Faso, who'd been there for a long time, he was ousted, and in the end, though, it's a lot of the people around him who are right now are handling the transition. Let me ask Carl Chris Nyasimyumva, do you agree with what's been said here on the panel? And what have you seen with your own eyes when it comes to the behavior of Burundi's soldiers this Wednesday?
Well, I was actually in the town center when the coup was announced, and I do understand that there are fears that it might not be successful yet, and one of those fears is justified by the fact that General Niyombare hasn't yet made an announcement on the public radio like we were used to years ago, whenever there was a coup, the first thing that was done was to make an announcement on on the public radio station. But in those years, there was only one radio station, which was the public one. But today, we have several radio stations, and there are several radio stations which are private, and the announcement has already been made on those. And even when you go through town, which is empty, by the way, and that's why I'm not on Skype like yesterday, when you're going through town, you realize that there are strategic points, strategic areas in the city center, like the State House and the area around the public radio station, RTNB, which are barricaded and have soldiers all around them so as to stop movement. And we're assuming, we don't know anything yet, we're assuming that the reason why he hasn't made an announcement is that there could be soldiers at the public station who are on Nkurunziza's side, who may have shown some sort of resistance, and the guys who have done the coup don't want to shed blood, and there's some kind of negotiation going there before he actually makes an announcement on there.
All right, so it's still tense at this particular point in time. A lot of reactions, by the way, coming in. One here saying Africa is progressing every year by gifting us military coups. What will happen in Uganda, a neighboring state to Burundi? And of course, neighboring states have been on tenterhooks, hence the fact that there was this summit called for in Tanzania, in neighboring Tanzania, to discuss the crisis in Burundi. That's an important point that's just been brought up by Carl Christ Nasimbyumva that I want to bring up with you, Duncan Woodside. We didn't hear this former head of intelligence, General Nyambore, make his statement on public radio. Instead, it was broadcast on a private radio station.
Well, that's right, yes, and obviously that could be key. It could signal that he doesn't have the broad base of support that he would need in order to pull this off. At the moment, things remain very much in the balance. It's not fully confirmed whether President Nkurunziza attempted to come back into the country. Obviously, we have a lot of reports saying that. It may be that he has not yet attempted that. Okay, it's perhaps a minority view or a minority scenario, but there are just so many rumors flying around at the moment that anything is plausible, and this is not a done deal. It has to be remembered that the president has significant supporters within his youth wing, and also potentially the parts of the army as well. It's such a fluid situation. We can't be sure what's going to happen next. And it does, of course, have a rural support base as well. And it's very difficult to envisage what will happen next. It's a guessing game, really, and it would be speculation to try to formulate a definite scenario at this point.
All right, so this is, we were talking earlier, and it was brought up by David Gakunzi, the situation in Burkina Faso from last October. The whole of Africa was watching that, but this is a very different case in Burundi.
Exactly. It's a bit different because of the fact that few militaries are showing resistance, and actually they are showing it precisely in that area where the national broadcaster is located, and I think that's why we have these negotiations. But as I was saying, if effectively the airport, the borders are closed, that means at a certain point we have to recognize that the coup is ongoing and it's serious. And I think we shall see what happens when he tries to land.
Osman Hussein, do you sense when you're in Burundi a generation gap between the young and the older generations that remember those past days when the standoff was more purely ethnic?
In Burundi, you can't say that is there big gap between the generation, but the president by himself, I think he's younger. He's earlier 50. And then the whole thing is that the president was controlling by some of the strong general who put him where he is. And then also there's some general who's supporting him currently, also pushing him to run for third term. Now, in the other general...
But he's his own man. He's a former militia leader. He is a former rebel himself. He's a strong personality.
But even if a strong personality, but also when he arrived in power, he was earlier 40 something, and then now he's also earlier 50. But the all things is there is some of the strong general who want him to stay in power, and then he cannot disagree with this general that to leave the power. That is not the case. And then by 2007, one of the strong men within the party, he was the celeber also detainer in the prison who called Hussein Rajabu. He ran out from the prison by the 1st of March. This one also, he was a very strong man within the party, but he was disagree with the president by earlier 2007, the way they are running the country. And then after his detention for 8 years, now he's come out from the prison. And then also, I think he's supporting, and there are earlier group together with those who have done the coup.
David Gakunzi, is your thoughts on that?
No, I think he's telling us that Pierre Nkurunziza was a weak man, but I think Nkurunziza was trying to tell the Burundian that he's a very strong man. So it's a contradictory. I think that he's the first responsible of the crisis. He's the first responsible of trying to break down the society. He bears all the responsibilities. The Burundian society, all the world have tried to give him a solution, but he refused. So he's the first responsible. And I think that today Burundi has changed and Africa has changed. There is a gap of generation, yes, because I think now you have 20 years old people who are not ready to accept anything. Those people, I think democratical culture is now a pop culture, is a popular culture. It's in the pop. For those generations, it's like a briefing. Being free is like briefing. So I'm afraid for those people who want to rule with personal power, it will never work no more in Africa.
All right, a cautionary tale is what you're saying. David Gakunzi, I want to thank you. I want to thank as well Just Irakodze, Osman Hussein for being with us. And I want to thank from Bujumbura, Carl Chris Nasimbuyumva, and of course Duncan Woodside, our correspondent, who will continue to be following this story as it develops and as we wait on news of the president's whereabouts. Stay with us. Much more to come right here on the France 24 debate.